Vanakkam. Today I would like to introduce this documentary film produced by Smita Shah in the year 1986 that is based on the life and art of T. Balasaraswati. Producing or directing any film about Balamma would be a very tough job because the information of footage, photographs, interviews have been scattered throughout the world. It took this film 2 years to be completed. Many stalwarts such as Ravi Shankarji, Chandrasekhar Sir, Charlie Reinhardt were interviewed about their artistic and personal experiences and interactions with Balamma. In this film also my mother plays a major role of speaking as her daughter and as her student and giving certain specific personal anecdotes and insights into her life with Balamma. It's a tough thing to talk about Balamma, particularly being such a world icon, but also being such an enigma for many, many people. Her art is an enigma. Her personality was an enigma. She was so reserved in the way she moved and very choosy about who she spoke with and interacted with that many people have had many assumptions, misunderstandings, and just understandings of who Srimati T. Balasaraswati was. I don't think anybody can really figure that out. And that will always be a part of the mystery of being Balamma. My family comes from a lineage of musicians and dancers, tracing back to the court of Tanjavur, deep, deep south, and deeply steeped in South Indian culture. Today, this lineage has spanned 3 centuries and 9 generations. It was actually, even being a part of the court, the family job was to pluck flowers and string garlands for the deity of Bangaru Kamakshi in Tanjavur. That was the actual family occupation. But art, music, and dance played a vital role in the shaping of the family. My ancestors such as Papammal, Kamakshi Ammal, Sundarammal had all learned from the masters such as Shishyas of Tyagaraja Swami, Muthuswami Dikshidhar, Shama Shastri, and these kritis have played a major role as the repertoire in the family's music. When we come down to Dhanammal, who was the 5th generation, she herself was a renegade and a beacon of light, where even today she is still regarded as the head of the family, as the matriarch of the family, where she passed on thousands of songs in her own repertoire, particularly the dance music and the way dance should be danced to music. This film, in a way, may be slightly incomplete, and I want to get back to you right after this film is over, just to give my insight on why this film surreptitiously has been made incomplete. Let me think about that for a minute, and why don't you enjoy the film, and we'll get right back to it. Thank you.
I think to most people, most dance is a foreign kind of dance, whatever it is. I don't think there are too many people watching dance who would call themselves experts on it, whether it's ballet or modern or Spanish or whatever. So that when a Bala comes along, granted, they may have lost some of the intricacies of the dance movements, but the genius that was Bala came soaring across those footlights like a sledgehammer. Boom! You watch Bala in the beginning and you wonder what's happening. And then she slowly begins to warm up. You know, she starts a little back and then she slowly begins to build. And then all of a sudden, something happens in you when you realize you kind of, your eyes widen, your mouth opens a little bit, and you realize, my goodness, this is as good as it's ever going to be.
And this she would sing in 100 different ways. And with that she did her abhinayam, calling Krishna in so many different ways, in begging Krishna to come, being angry at Krishna, lovingly, tender, and you know, I mean, it was just unbelievable what she could do. And each time she was different.
I felt a twinge of regret at having missed her in her prime. I consoled myself with the thought that Bala, filmed at 58, was better than Bala not being filmed at all. This would be a film for the archive. This would be a film which would preserve, which would be a record of her dancing at a fairly late stage in her career.
Actually, I had met Bala in 1932 when we went to Madras for the first time. This was at the house where Veenadhanam, her grandmother, lived. She was almost blind at that time. But one particular evening, I remember we all went. It was a very old house, small. We went up and we all sat down and Veenadhanam played the veena. I remember clearly, within just not even 1 minute, while listening to her, I had tears in my eyes, which proves to say that she had something very special. There was so much of soul and so much of emotion in her playing that she could bring tears to people's eyes. And that's what Bala herself inherited.
She had her Arangetram, or the debut, maiden performance at the age of 7. So they went to Kanchipuram, and at this Amanakshi temple, she danced, and she said how excited she was and how she got all ready for the concert. She said as soon as the Murdangam man started tuning his instrument, and her teacher was sitting there with the talam and the tambura sound, she said she felt a kind of excitement, her blood rising, and all she wanted to do was dance.
I was 14 and this was in 1934, and Bala was 18, I think, at that time.
This was the first performance of Bharatnatyam in Calcutta, and I happened to be present in the audience as a schoolboy of about 14 or 15. So I was very struck by this completely new kind of dancing. I'd never seen anything like that before.
That was the first time people saw pure Bharatanatyam performed like that, and by the best person.
Everybody was tremendously impressed with this very young girl who performed with such grace and charm and confidence.
Immediately she became like a star.
Do you know why it is difficult to define or describe Bala? Because Bala is many things and you can't describe them all simultaneously. That's one of the problems. Bala was a very great artist who didn't look like an artist off the stage.
She was not even particularly good looking or beautiful, but when she danced she looked beautiful. There was no question of that.
She was a magnificent musician, and you start talking about her as a musician, you describe her as a musician.
Oh, she was such a fantastic singer. So much in sur, so much in tune and emotion. And particularly this song she used to sing. Krishna
While she was dancing, suddenly she will stand transfixed. And one would wonder why she's doing that. You see? Then will come the revelation that she is enjoying her own mother's music.
Her mother Jayammal was equally competent in producing a kind of swaying music which would make anyone in the audience himself shake the body.
Because of Jayammal's music, Bala's dance also was flowering and it was shining.
Bala's performing career was always checkered. Periods of great recognition with also as many periods of tremendous lull. Satisfaction within the house and with the family and in close circles, but sometimes very little recognition.
Forcing triumph out of defeat. This is exactly what happened at the end of that period.
I was very young then, very young, but I did go with her to Tirutani. For some time she was not performing a lot. She was getting sick. So she had taken this vow, and she thought maybe because she hadn't gone there and danced, that there were so many hurdles. She took her bells with her and she started dancing right at the sanctum sanctorum, right inside. And nobody said a word there. I mean, it was, like a screen there. Nobody could see anything, I think. And there she danced. My grandmother sang. She danced in front of the deity. It was meant only to dance for Muruga. So she danced for him. That's what she wanted, and God answered her wish. After she danced there, she felt very strongly that she really started performing a lot, and she was getting to be recognized again.
Again she came back in 1949 to the stage. I went there with a feeling that after long lack of practice, how she is going to do things, whether she is going to do justice to her great art. Oh, it was such a beautiful dance that day. I can never forget it.
1963 Edinburgh Festival. Director, the Earl of Howard.
I planned a big kind of Indian invasion of the Edinburgh Festival, which worked.
The world's press was there. And one of the major papers which wrote about her performance by one of the great critics of our time had this big headline, Krishna came. That was headline, Krishna came. Krishna ni begane baro, Krishna came.
She came with a determination to make the Bharatanatyam art something unique in its own way. And she wanted to start a school.
taught us dance, but added to that, she taught us to do it perfectly, to do it the best way we could.
Because sometimes she would just make me do things 50 times, you know, until I realized what she wanted me to do from the very beginning. She would just say, do it 50 times, and then by the 25th time you say, okay, I got it. And then you never forgot those things. But that was an amazing method of teaching, I think.
She would show me one line, and I would watch completely dazed, because it didn't seem to me that there was any way I could do that. I'd say, oh, please, Ma, I don't think I can do it. She said, do, you mad thing. Simply do it.
From my childhood, I was hearing all that music, seeing all that dancing. And also I used to watch Bala very carefully, because I just used to love watching her dance. Sometimes I would complain to my grandmother. I said, oh, why are you not teaching me today? What happened? My grandmother, used to... She said, no, I don't have to teach you. I didn't learn it that way. My mother never taught me anything. Just by listening, she said, you will also get it the same way. Don't worry.
And of course it was Bala. It wasn't the art form. That's what I think is so important. And it's so incredible, because you think one of those comes along maybe every 100 years, but then when I see her daughter, Lakshmi, dance, again, I'm starting to hold my breath, and I realize, my goodness, it's going from one generation to the next.
Krishna, sun, beautiful, children. Mama was my grandmother. So she was a nice person. She taught me all the dancing. I learned the footsteps when I was small. All of the things from Balamma.
She felt very strongly that he might be a dancer. There is something in him that is in his blood.
She had been ill a long time and had been doing very little dancing. And as we talked about it, she said, but I have a dancer who is going to perform for you. And she lifted up her grandchild and put it on the table, and she started singing. And the little child started dancing. The little child, who she hoped perhaps would carry on with her.
Welcome back. At the conclusion of this documentary that you just saw, you would have seen me dance at the age of 5. And for me, even at that age, dancing wasn't something that was for fun. It was something that was very serious to me. I still remember even seeing much of the footage actually that was taken during the early 80s when Balamma was alive and Rangatata was alive and Vishwadatta was alive. When I was 1.5, 2 years old, it was a constant thing in the house where I was the entertainment for everybody. I had some of the world's best music. I had Balamma singing, Vishwadatta singing, Rangatata playing the mridangam, and various other people who really participated in the encouragement of my early artistic learning. That's how I learned. I learned just through moving the arms and imitating and watching. But it finally flowered into something that was the driving force in my life. Life does give you a lot of challenges, and it threw me many, as it should, because it won't get my attention otherwise, will it? When after high school, during high school, my mother became very ill with cancer, and there was a time that I had to make the decision on whether I wanted to continue with a much more conventional path of a conventional education and a conventional career, Or do I want to take this family art seriously and move it to the next generation? So the art didn't let me go in the end. And I discovered that at the young age of 16, where my classes with my mother weren't just classes, but we were fighting against a fatal situation, because I knew that her life was ending at a particular, in a very short span, but I still needed to learn. And the greatest lesson for me in that is that the art survives beyond death. It is something that is passed on. It is something that forces itself to survive and gives you these challenges. In the end, it will help you through it. It is such a great honor to be a part of this family. Sometimes many people ask me, the shadow of T. Balasaraswati is so grand, so large, that it encapsulates generations of people. But is it really a shadow? Her art, herself being such a beacon of light, has been a light for us. So there is no shadow that can be produced. There is no shadow. It's just pure light. The Balasaraswati tradition. And my greatest honor and privilege. Thank you. Today's dance series will be videos of Srimati Lakshmi Knight, the daughter of T. Balasaraswati and the prime disciple of T. Balasaraswati and the 8th generation of the Balamma lineage. It's very odd for me to talk about my mother in such a third-person manner, in such an objective way, because of course she was my mother, my guru, and my inspiration. I had seen her perform since the day I was born, actually even before that, because she danced while she was 6 months pregnant in Hawaii. And I guess my dancing started well before I entered this world. One of the greatest things that I enjoyed doing was to watch her perform, because I could never predict what she was going to do, because she really epitomized the manodharma, or the improvisation technique of the Balasaraswati school of dancing. Never once did she practice the abhinaya at home. It was only the music that she practiced. And that importance that she also gave to music is what I imbibed in my career. Though we had conventional classes, much of the learning is done through an osmosis process where a lot of it is observed and absorbed subconsciously. And those subconscious lessons don't appear immediately after the lesson itself, but take years for them to emerge in the dance itself. Many classes still are in my mind, even when I perform and even when I dance. You will see that Usha Shivakumar, who was singing in these clips, each time I perform with Usha Shivakumar, we will remember my mother at the same time when we do our padams, because her dance was so vivid to us. She brought the music to life through dance. And the dance became the dance because of the music. And she showed us that. In today's video, the accompanists are the great Sangeeta Kalanidhi T. Vishwanathan, his prime disciple Usha Shivakumar, and prime disciple and repository of the Padams and Javalis of the Danamal tradition and how to sing for them. See Douglas Knight, who was the prime disciple of T. Ranganathan and also the prime disciple of Kanchipuram Kuppuswamy Mudalayar, who accompanied Balasaraswati for 50 years on the Mridangam. So the entire ensemble is a family ensemble. It's a single unit. And representative of what Lakshmi Knight worked for and represents what she passed on to others and within her family. Today she'll be dancing Nidreyal, a short padam, quick moving padam in the ragam Pantavarali, and you will notice that the swiftness of the song itself alludes to the entire suspicious atmosphere of the love-stricken maiden who has dreamt of her lover spending time with another. Nidreyal Soppanathil, Ragam Pantuvarali. Thank you.
The first item is called Nithya, In My Sleep. This is the lament of a distraught wife who has dreamt of her husband's dallying with a young and lovely maiden. She says, "In my sleep last night, I dreamt I saw him on the terrace, happy with another. My heart cannot bear thinking of it again and again. King Pratapa, Bhoja-like son of Amarasimha, he who is praised in Tamil poetry, music and drama. I saw him in my dreams with that lady. She was a tender young maiden with a beautifully shaped body, a blooming face. Oh, it is difficult to describe. Now, every minute seems an aeon. Oh, her grace, her slender waist, her silken garments. In my sleep last night, I dreamt I saw him on the terrace, happy with another." Nithya, Raga Pantuvarali, Aditala.
Payyada Paimida, the quintessential Padam from the Danamal lineage. In this video, Lakshmi Knight, my mother, will be dancing this Padam in the Ragam Nadaramakriya, accompanied by Usha Shokumar, T. Vishwanathan, and Douglas Knight. I remember the first time I saw my mother perform this piece. It had been months that she was not well, and she had to go and do a performance, a demonstration actually, at Schenectady in upstate New York. I remember both of us got on a bus. We went, and sitting in the audience, I remember listening to this Padam, Payyada Paimida. Not knowing the meaning of the song, not knowing the background of the song, or even knowing what a Padam really was. I remember the tears, I remember the weeping that followed by listening to the music and watching the dance. This just proves to me that dance and music are boundless. They're not culturally constrained. They're universal. That's what my mother taught me. I'd like to thank Rajika Puri Didi for giving this family this opportunity to perform at her house in New York City. This video was taken in 1991 at Rajika Puri Didi's house, because it has left me with such a sweet memory. That's why it's so important to me. Without that, it would just be grappling for more memories and more nostalgia.
Who suddenly realizes she has lost her husband's love. She recalls his early adoration and blames her unkempt appearance. She says, "Alas, my Lord has developed an aversion for me. My Lord, who was greatly attached to me. Once he used to gaze on my countenance with rapt adoration. As evening grew into dusk, to gaze once more on my face he approached, and then in the twilight called for a lantern." Payyada Paimidu in Ragam Nadanamakriya, Talam Tishra Tripuda.
Would love to thank Narthaki.com and Anita Ratnamakka for dedicating these 2 days for Balamma and my mother, because they need to be remembered. This tradition needs to go on ahead, but also remember its own roots. Thank you for the memories. Vanakkam.